in this really as Browns fans where you fall into, I think right now there are 4 camps of Browns fans. And I could be wrong about this. If any more come to your guys' mind while I say this, let me know. Camp 1. Cam Ward or bust. So if you're in a Cam Ward or bust camp, there are only 2 scenarios it feels like that work for you. Scenario 1 is that the Tennessee Titans, who, by the way, seemed to be pretty infatuated with him yesterday.
You think?
They sent everybody there. Now, what'll be curious is I won't be here on Friday, but on Friday, right, is the Penn State Pro Day. Is it the same?
Penn State Pro Day, and there's another Pro Day as well on Friday.
If they're all at the Penn State Pro Day and they're all over Abdul Carter after that as well, then now we've got some interest. So if you're in your Cam Ward or bust camp, you need Tennessee to take Abdul Carter, or you need the Browns to trade to 1 to get Cam Ward, right? That feels to me like that's it. That's it. That's one list, and those are your 2 options to make it happen. Now the question is, what does it cost to trade to 1? What are you even willing to give up? Is it a couple of? I don't think you're giving up a future first to move up 1 spot. Now, if he turns out to be the guy, then there is no price that's too big. But we are a team that has not had first-round picks. I would like to certainly keep them for now. So could you give up? Would you give up pick 2 and your 26 second rounder? Does he have to give up some thirds? Who knows? But those are your 2 scenarios. In the scenario that you did that means Tennessee was actually fine taking Abdul Carter all along, and they get a free second-round pick for doing so, which seems like a good idea if you're Tennessee, if that's what you want. So you kind of need Tennessee to not be 100% in on Cam Ward. Otherwise, it seems like that's pretty toast for you. That leads to me to the other – actually, it's really 4 more camps after that. So I guess we're in 5 camps. So if there is no Cam Ward available to you, if you're the Cam Ward only draft, there is a camp of people that believe quarterback at 2, Shedeur Sanders. Take Shedeur, leader, winner, tough, accurate, point guard. Reminds people, Kirk Cousins, Teddy Bridgewater, 2 quarterbacks that certainly Kevin Stefanski knows and loved having be his quarterback. So there is the camp of that's it. So it's just that easy. We have not drafted quarterbacks early other than Tim Couch and Baker Mayfield. We need to get a quarterback. A quarterback is the only thing that turns this thing around. I happen to believe this. But you have to have an evaluation here of Shedeur Sanders that says, I believe he can be a top half quarterback in the league. Now, if he's Andy Dalton, because I heard somebody say that today, I think on Get Up, which I think we'll hear later, or First Take, one of those shows. Is that number 2? I mean, Andy Dalton feels to me like a road to nowhere. So that's you can win some games, but you're never going to win the Super Bowl. In fact, Andy Dalton, I don't believe, ever won a playoff game as a member of the Cincinnati Bengals because Marvin Lewis did not.
Correct.
So what's your evaluation of Shedeur? There are people that believe in him, and I'll tell you what, I believe him. I think Shedeur Sanders could run this offense very, very well. We've seen, Mike Tannenbaum said today, I think he's a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. Bucky Brooks has him as his top quarterback in this draft. I've seen Louis Riddick say he absolutely is worth being picked in the first half of the first round. Orlovsky feels that way. There are others who do not have as high of a grade on him, and they think he's a late first or an early second-round pick. Now, if it works out, again, it doesn't matter. Like if you ask the Eagles, would you go back and do your draft where you drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round, would you pick him number 1 overall? They'd say yeah. So it doesn't matter if the outcome's good. If the outcome's bad, it's also not good. But so this comes down to what is your evaluation? Can he be a top 16 quarterback? If yes, you take Shedeur. And I think there's a big percentage of people that believe that. I would be among them. Now, I also believe, whereas I think Cam is more fit agnostic, I think Shedeur needs to be in a particular system. And I think of people who are running a system like ours, so that's McVay, Shanahan, us, Kevin O'Connell, LaFleur. Arthur Smith runs certainly a variation of that in Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh would be a good spot for him. Don't want that. I don't want any part of that. But that's more of what you're looking at there. So camp one would be Cam Ward or bust, and we've talked about that. So if Cam Ward's off the table, I think there are 4 camps of Browns fans. And 4 real scenarios. One is you take Shedeur right there. If you don't think he can be a top 16 quarterback at him reaching his ceiling, and you don't think this is somebody that you can contend for, AFC North championships, now you go on to the next scenario, right? So what are the three scenarios that are left? I'll call it Travis Hunter. I'll call it the Carters, Abdul Carter and the Carters, who are very loud. And then there's, I think, trade down. So if you can't get Cam Ward, if the Browns don't think that Shedeur Sanders is that guy and Cam Ward's gone, that leaves you, I think, in a tough spot. I think that leaves you in a tough spot. Because your options, I think there are three options. So option one would be Travis Hunter. And you know me, I'm all about weapons, weapons, weapons. He is a weapon. He is the number one receiver in this class. I saw McShay talking about that. A lot of he's the number one receiver in this class, and he can probably give you 10 plus, call it meaningful snaps at corner in a game as well. Now, he thinks he can play both ways the whole time. I don't know if he can do that. But at least he helps you do what? To me, quarterback is number one. Number two is overhauling the offense of the Cleveland Browns that was dead last in the league. Dead last. If you cannot score the football, you can't win in the NFL. And I realize we'll get to the Carters in a second, that they just want to suffocate everybody. The rules make it so hard to do that, and it's very difficult to year after year be a top defense in the NFL. It just is. It's just a historical fact. You can look it up, how hard it is to be a top 10 defense one year and then stay there again the next year. It's a difficult thing to do. So back to Travis Hunter. So that, to me, that's another camp for you. He's at least a weapon. He's going to help you score the football, and he can also help you stop the other team from scoring the football. And I think he brings a pizzazz and excitement, to this organization. All of a sudden now you've got, Judy, and you've got Travis Hunter, you've got David Njoku, you've got, so Pro Bowlers there, an early pick at wide receiver. You hopefully bring back Nick Chubb back. You're going to draft a running back, I'm sure. Jerome Ford, you got a good running game. And then so you're saying, what are we doing at quarterback then? And that's part of this whole area over here, this next three. So Travis Hunter, that's an option for you. Then you have Abdul Carter, and I do think he's a little small to play 4-3 defensive end. Absolutely a scintillating pass rusher, incredible. I am worried about the foot injury and how that can linger potentially in his career, but there's no doubt an electric talent, and certainly he's a top 4 pick in this draft, period. Because I really think if the top 4 is Cam, Shedeur, it's going to be Cam, Shedeur, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter. If it's no Shedeur in the top 4, it's going to be Cam, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter likely are going to be the top 3 picks at that point. So dominant defensive end. I would say when I look at the Cleveland Browns, honestly, I feel as good about that room as I do in any room. Now, you're not drafting for need. This is the best player in this draft, and he's better than all the quarterbacks. He's better than everything, which leads you back to the Cam Ward camp and says, well, if that really is true, maybe the Titans don't take Cam Ward, and then we get to get Cam Ward. The idea of pairing him with Miles, that's very exciting. Him and McGuire and Miles and Mike Hall on the field at the same time. Malik Collins. Maybe we're doing some 5-man, pressure fronts in our nickel. Okay. I like it. It doesn't help us score the football. This is a very valuable asset, and it doesn't help us. It does not help us get to the answer at quarterback. So, and this is part of Travis Hunter as well. If you take Travis Hunter, does not help you get to the answer at quarterback unless you get lucky, which is you could on a second round or a third round quarterback. Statistically, it's tougher. We know this. These are just facts. And then there's the third camp, which would be trade out of that pick. So number one, what do you need? You need somebody who wants to trade up to that pick. Now, could there be a team that's so enamored with an Abdul Carter or with a Travis Hunter or a Shedeur Sanders that they come up and give you something significant? Yes. Those assets that you would recoup would have to be, I think, stockpiled for the quarterback, which you are now kind of punting to 26. And now, could Kenny Pickett develop into something? Sure. That's a bite at the apple. That's far from a sure thing. But he is 15-10 as a starter, 7 game-winning drives. Could he run this offense? Feels like a good fit for him. So you can talk yourself into that, but understand that is not necessarily, what you're trying to get out of it, in my opinion, when you're picking second overall in the draft. So that's the landscape. And if it's Cam Ward or bust, if you're in that camp, you need help. You need Tennessee to help you, either by drafting Abdul Carter or by letting you get to number one. And also not trading that pick, if they are trading out of it, to number 3 to the Giants. If you like Shedeur every bit as much as Cam Ward in this building, then you're fine. You don't have to, it's going to work itself out, and you're going to draft Shedeur Sanders second. If you believe, for example, in Mike Tannenbaum, the former general manager of the New York Jets, mock that Shedeur Sanders is a top 12, 15 quarterback in the NFL, he's not going to be available at 3. If the Browns feel that way, they're drafting him. Like, period, the end of story. If you feel like Marcus Mosher, who at least did he has 16 first-round grades, Shedeur's in that mix, you're taking him at 2. If you don't, though, now we get into the next scenarios, which is the Travis Hunter, who Andrew Berry said at the Combine. It's so weird that people would write, they'll play corner for the Browns when Andrew Berry at the Combine said he's a wide receiver. And I think he would play wide receiver primarily, some DB. Then it's Abdul Carter. That would be another bucket. Or then it's the trade down. If we're all in agreement, and I would like to think that we all are all in agreement on at least this, in what has become a very challenging Browns Twitter landscape. Quarterback is the biggest issue facing this organization, and it is the biggest hurdle to becoming a consistent winner in this organization and to challenge for an AFC North crown and for a Super Bowl. You pick second. You have an asset that I believe needs to lead to a swing at that. So in my mind, that either comes in the form of Shedeur at 2 or the trade down scenario. If there is a willing person that is able to give you assets that are valuable enough to make it worth your while and allow you to have a shot to put together a package in 26 when we're all told it's going to be a much better quarterback class. If it's between Hunter and Carter, totally get it. It's not like I don't understand these are good football players. I understand that. If it's between those two, right now we need help on offense. I actually feel pretty good about our defensive end room. I do. You got Myles Garrett, the defensive player of the year. We have seen teams kind of put together the two of them. And by the way, Za'Darius has been here, a 3-time Pro Bowler. Clowney's been here, a 3-time Pro Bowler. Olivier Vernon's been here, who's a Pro Bowler. We've had good defensive ends opposite Myles Garrett. I also like the way Isaiah McGuire played. I liked what Alex Wright was doing before he got hurt. Tryon Shoyinka, former first-round talent. Maybe he's got some juice in him. Then you got Obo Okoronkwo as well. So that's a room that actually, on a team with a lot of holes and needs, by the way, most of which are on the offensive side of the ball, where you're in bad need of 2 quarterbacks, 1 tight end, probably 2 receivers, and at least 1 or 2 running backs. This asset, to me, has to help that if it's not going to help, directly at the quarterback. Or the trade down, to me, still feels like, okay, we recognize this asset. We, internally, do not have the grade on Shedeur Sanders that some others do. We're more in line internally with, he's a late first, early second guy, which is fine. Nobody knows. That's the thing. And the other part about it, there aren't absolutes in scouting. And scouting is about, here's the tape, here are the traits that I see that lead me to believe this person can be successful. Here are the traits and the things I see that lead me to believe actually it's going to be challenging to reach that ceiling, and then you put it together into a scouting profile. It's not an absolute thing. If it was an absolute thing, the draft would be nothing but home runs all the time, and it's not even the first round. So this is where we're at, and that's why I want to get there. I don't know the answer. I don't know what our board looks like. I know what I would do. But we don't know what the Browns will do. And so that's why this becomes a very interesting situation, because these are the 5 buckets. It's Cam Ward or bust. Can you make that happen? Now, it just was leaked out 8 minutes ago that Tennessee is going to hold an additional private workout with potential number 1 overall pick Cam Ward. They have become increasingly impressed with Ward, and while they're expected to listen to offers for the number 1 pick, it would now take an even stronger one. Okay. If you're set on Cam Ward, you're not leaking this.
I would agree with you.
If you're set on Cam Ward, you're not leaking this. So why has this been leaked? And the way that it is worded, it is clearly from the Titans, and this is what they want people to think. This pro day was impressive. There's no doubt. The guy can throw the ball. That's never his arm talent has never been in question. His ability to throw from a variety of platforms. By the way, the throw that everybody's going crazy about, you know who made a throw just like that on their pro day and went second overall? Zach Wilson.
G-Man had it.
Zach Wilson. His stock should not be affected positively by a pro day. Negatively, sure. If you come out there and you are terrible on
The
air.
Miami wide receiver that ran a 4.840 yesterday.
Oof.
Whoopsies.
Good player, too.
Yeah.
But, maybe he ends up being a very productive slot that doesn't have great measurables in the NFL. We'll see. But that shouldn't affect things. So what the Titans are trying to do is say, everybody saw that. Oh, wow, exciting. We're going to have another private workout. We've become increasingly impressed with him. We're not going to lock it up, though. We just want now a stronger package to acquire the draft top selection. That sounds to me like maybe they do want to trade out. So the Cam Ward or bust people, I read that as good news for you. And by the way, I love Cam Ward. I think he's the most talented quarterback in this class. So that means if the Browns want him, maybe there's a play to get up there. Now they're trying to drive that price up, no doubt. But that doesn't say to me that they're a team that is locked in on Cam Ward. It doesn't, because there's no reason to why you don't even need to say that if you're for sure taking him, because it really wouldn't matter. The fact that they're open to it, they're quarterback desperate. They've made no moves at that position. The fact they're saying that means they are more than willing to trade back. To me, that says they are not locked in on him. That's what it says to me. We'll see if that ends up being the case. When we come back, we're going to be joined by our good friend Armando Salguero, a senior writer for Outkick, who joins the show on the Twisted Tea Hotline. That's coming up next here on Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. It's time now to go to the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Oh, what a treat. Our good friend Armando Salguero, senior writer for Outkick, joins us now via the Twisted Tea Hotline. Armando, first of all, how are you? It's sunny here, but only 40. I imagine things are better for you.
Oh, what is 40? What is that?
I don't know.
I don't understand. I don't get that.
It's...
No.
Well, we know you are doing better than that. And yesterday, the eyes of the world were tuned into South Florida for the pro day for Cam Ward and other members of the Miami Hurricanes. I know that you watched it. You took it in. What can you tell us about Cam Ward, and did you read anything from that pro day and obviously the overwhelming attendance of the Tennessee Titans brass?
It was overwhelming. I mean, I was surprised that they didn't send the mascot, because that would probably be the only person in the entire organization that they didn't send. It was impressive what they did. And you know, obviously they sent their team president, they sent their general manager, they sent the head coach, they sent the quarterback coach, they sent the offensive coordinator, they sent their TV production crew and their website chief writer.
Yep.
So it was like, we're going to be there en masse. They had dinner with Cam Ward the night before. Look, if the Tennessee Titans are not planning to draft Cam Ward, they are putting out the biggest smokescreen I've ever seen in my entire time covering the NFL, because everyone believes that they're drafting him, and they are going through the paces and doing the things that teams that are going to draft their guy do.
I would agree with that. I am very curious to see on Friday if they have the same entourage or presence at Abdul Carter's pro day, because I don't know. We just right before we got on the air, I don't know if you've seen Adam Schefter's tweet, but he just tweeted out 18 minutes ago, ESPN sources, and I'm totally with you. So that's why this what Adam Schefter says here kind of throws my head in a little bit of a loop, and let me see what you think. It said ESPN sources, Tennessee will hold an additional private workout with potential number 1 overall pick Cam Ward. The Titans have become increasingly impressed with Ward, and while they are expected to listen to offers for the number 1 overall pick, it would now take an even stronger package to acquire the draft's top selection. So why in the world is this being leaked out? Because this clearly is being leaked out by Tennessee. Why is this being leaked out now after what we saw yesterday?
They're trying to maximize. What I've written is that Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 overall pick regardless.
Agreed. Yep.
That doesn't mean to Tennessee. I believe it will be Tennessee, because I don't think that they're nuts. But I believe it will be Tennessee. But if it's not Tennessee, if at some point in these private workouts or extra meetings or the 30 visit or whatever, Cam Ward goes like nuts and like, you know, does something completely off kilter and out of character and turns the Titans off, he is still going to be the number 1 pick, because the Titans would then turn around and say, all right, this pick is up for sale. And they basically said that at the Combine.
Yep.
The pick, we're open for business. And so the team that would come behind, or 2 slots behind, might decide, yeah, well, we're going to go that way because the Titans are crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you, and it feels like there's no doubt he will be the number 1 pick in this draft. It's such an interesting play to leak that today to me, and just kind of, I'll talk to you my logic, and just, you know, we can just get back and forth. That was a very impressive pro day. There's no doubt, and there really should be no doubt. Anybody who's put the tape on that, Cam Ward can throw the football from any angle, from any platform, really to any blade of grass on the field, and do so, quite frankly, very accurately, especially on air, and did that yesterday. And everybody, the throw where he rolled left and threw that bomb was very reminiscent of Zach Wilson. So we know the talent is there. It feels like if you were so locked in, you almost wouldn't say anything because there's no reason to, and then that also sends signals that, hey, they're so locked in. If we want to try to get anything here, we're going to have to blow them out of the water. This to me says we like them. We also like maybe Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or somebody, and we're kind of open for business, and we're going to use what was a very strong on-air pro day, which people should look good on air on pro days, to try and get more for a move that maybe we were planning on making, which would boggle my mind. But I'll tell you, you were at the Combine, right? At the Combine, nobody thought they were taking a quarterback at 1. Nobody.
Right. I look at it, I mean, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I look at it as the Titans trying to maximize every single avenue,
Okay.
so that when they make the final decision, it's going to be, look, this is what we're really weighing. We're weighing Cam Ward versus probably 2 number ones plus, as opposed to, well, we don't know what we're really weighing, and we have to wait until draft night
Sure.
to find out. So it makes sense. There's nobody that's going to get ahead of them.
Nope.
So they can do whatever they want without really any problem of or any concern of someone's going to get ahead of them. The people that have concerns are picking 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Yep. Yeah, and then you wonder for them if it's, from a Browns lens, let's say in a hypothetical that the Browns it's Cam Ward or bust for the Browns at quarterback. What does it take to get from 2 to 1 in the event that Tennessee was obviously fine with it because they would move, and they still get Abdul Carter and they get the player that they wanted and something for free. So I think that's an interesting discussion. 3 changes things for them because if they go to 3, it's not a guarantee that the Browns don't take whoever it was that they truly wanted when they traded out. Do you think that gives the Browns any bit of a better shot if they were the team that's trying to get to 1 to do so at maybe a better rate than obviously it would be for the Giants?
100%. And, Browns fans may be listening to us talk and say, why in the world would the Browns go from 2 to 1 to get Cam Ward? Well, the reason would be if they decide that they really want Cam Ward,
yep,
and they really want to eventually have the guy on campus, so to speak, that is going to take over for Deshaun Watson, you go to number 1 to make sure that the New York Giants, who are at number 3, don't get past you. That's the reason that the Browns' thinking would be to jump from 2 to 1. It's not to get to 1 to just make Cam Ward the top pick. It's to get to 1 to avoid having the Giants make Cam Ward the top pick.
That's exactly right. Talking with our good friend Armando Salguero, senior writer for Outkick. Armando, Cam Ward was the star of the day, obviously, and he's the one that can go at the top of the draft, but there are plenty of guys on this Miami team that can get drafted. You watch him on tape, incredibly productive, Restapo, but a 4.8, did that tank his draft stock completely?
So it doesn't help his draft stock, obviously.
No.
But look, there are offensive linemen, there are defensive linemen in the NFL that are running 4.8s. Okay? Tristan Wirfs ran a 4.8.
I know.
At the Combine one time.
Yeah.
There's lots. The Cleveland Browns just signed Jerome Baker. He's running 4.4, high 4.4s and 4.5s. Okay, so obviously Restrepo has an issue there, and then you turn on the tape, and then you look at the practices, and all the guy does is make plays.
Yep.
And all the guy does is get open, and all the guy does is become his quarterback's favorite receiver, despite and regardless of who the quarterback is. And so that has to tell teams it's not just about linear, 40-yard speed with this guy. It's about something more. He's a football player. He's not a track star. And so I think that teams will see that eventually. They're not going to draft him high, if at all. But once the guy gets on a practice field somewhere around the NFL, he's going to be just fine.
It feels like, and I'll go a guy who played some time in Miami as well, that who ran, I think he ran like a 4.7, although he ran faster as pro day, with Jarvis Landry, who we certainly loved up here, but was always able to produce more than his timed talent would indicate.
Absolutely. Why? Because Jarvis Landry knew leverage. He knew football. He was, again, and it sounds stupid for me to say it, but he was a football player playing football.
Yep.
And so people get caught up with the underwear Olympics of the combine, where guys in shorts and cleats are going, 4.3s, 4.2s you see sometimes. And then what happens to them when they get on the field? John Ross, who the Cincinnati Bengals famously drafted, he could fly. And then the football game began. And all of a sudden, John Ross was not it.
Yep.
And so what I'm saying is, you want a guy that, sure, it'd be great to have the natural skills and the God-given, talent and the critical factors that scouts look for. But the smart teams, the teams that typically maximize their drafts, they find guys who, when you turn on the tape, they make plays in game. Emmitt Smith is the NFL's leading rusher of all time. He was not fast. Walter Payton was not fast. Jerry Rice was not fast. But they were great, what? Football players.
That's right, and that's what the name of the game is, and certainly he could end up being a steal for somebody later in the draft if that time pushes him down. I want to ask you about one other guy from the U that when I watch Cam Ward, and in my mind, if we can get him to the Browns, that would be incredible. And then a guy that I wanted to pair him with is Elijah Arroyo. I thought that tight end popped off the tape. The idea of putting him and David Njoku, two U tight ends, together in some of our 12 personnel seems very exciting to me. What do you like about Arroyo, and what's kind of your sense with him as he moves here into the draft?
He's prototype.
Yeah, I love him. I love him.
That's the difference between, we were talking about Restrepo, who is prototype. Arroyo is every bit prototype. He's 6'4", he's 247 pounds. He can easily carry 250, 252 if you ask him to. He's fast. He has the desire to block, which is important because a good coaching staff, if a guy has the desire, he's going to be a good blocker. If a guy doesn't have a good desire, then no matter how much technique you pour into him, it's not going to happen. He's got the desire. He's a good person. I've talked to him a couple of times, and you get the sense that, the background is there, the desire is there, the coachability is there. I have a hard time understanding why he won't be like a second-round pick. I don't know where the experts have him going, but tight ends are great to have. Great tight ends are great to have. Obviously, the Browns have one from the University of Miami.
That's right.
And so why not? Why not have two?
I'm with you. Why not have two? I would love it. I would be all for it. I put it in my mocks. I'm trying to will it to existence here for the Browns. Want to get you out of here on this one. What do you make of just overall stepping back and just looking at the league, just kind of the quarterback situation around the league, and really right now what is happening, with kind of Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and the fact that it feels like a lot of things are kind of on hold based on Rodgers, who frankly has not been able to produce winning seasons for, at least not in his time in New York, one due to injury, and then last year they just didn't get it done.
Right. So obviously everyone is waiting on Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yep.
It's the next domino that needs to fall, and everyone, starting with Russell Wilson, is waiting for that domino to fall. I don't know why Aaron Rodgers hasn't already picked the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, he spent 6 hours with them last Friday and decided, okay, that was good, but I'm still not signing right away. And so you start to wonder. I was told early on that retirement is going to be one of those things that he mulls very, very seriously. And so we're going to see. I don't have a prediction for you now as to the whole Jets experience. I think I have a little bit of different perspective on that than most people. Most people would say, well, Aaron Rodgers was brought to New York to win a championship, to make them relevant, to get them back into the playoffs, and he failed miserably. And that is true. But that doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers failed miserably. His first year, he was injured on the fourth play of the game.
Yep.
That's not his fault.
Nope.
Last year, the dude throws 28 touchdown passes with, I think, like 11 interceptions. So Josh Allen won the MVP with 28 touchdown passes. Patrick Mahomes went to the Super Bowl with 26 touchdown passes. Jaden Daniels won Rookie of the Year or Offensive Rookie of the Year with 25 touchdown passes, and everybody was trying to sign Matt Stafford this offseason or get him to leave the Rams, and he had 20 touchdown passes last year. Aaron Rodgers did not have a bad year last year coming off an Achilles. Did he maximize? No, he didn't. Was he terrible? Absolutely not.
Yep.
He wasn't.
No, he wasn't, and we've had people from the Jets. I think their play-by-play voice on, and he can still play. There's no doubt about that. He needs to kind of maybe allow coaches to put a little bit more modern wrinkles in on his offense, but that he can still play. And yeah, well, there's obviously a lot of waiting on that. Speaking of, real quick, in that division, and obviously down where you are there in Miami, Dolphins, disappointing year last year. What's kind of the sense around that team that still has a lot of talent, but last year was just a strange year, and clearly they need to make sure, and I know they've tried to, they think they have a plan in case Tua misses time.
They have the longest drought. They have the longest playoff drought of any team in the NFL. The last time they won a playoff game was in December of 2000.
Wow.
So there's that. And folks down here are getting a little antsy and a little, despondent about the whole thing. They obviously were all in on Tua in 2020, Tua Tagovailoa. And when Mike McDaniel arrived, they were still in that sweet spot of Tua Tagovailoa is on a rookie contract, and so we can bring in all sorts of talent like Bradley Chubb and Ramsey at cornerback and all sorts of things, and Tyreek Hill. The problem is Tua is not on a rookie contract anymore. He's making $52 or $54 million a year.
Yep.
I wanted to say thousand, which would be
doing a little bit better than that.
Of a bargain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now what they have is a lot of high-priced talent at the top, including all the names that I mentioned, but they don't have a middle class, and it's mostly fill-in guys, so they haven't really been able to address needs in free agency. The draft hasn't gone as expected for them, and they're in a tough spot because they're no better than what they were before Mike McDaniel arrived, and they haven't produced, and now they have an expensive, very expensive top of the roster that still hasn't produced a playoff win.
Yeah, is it now or never for Mike McDaniel?
Well, I can't predict to you what owner Steve Ross is going to do because he's a wild card.
Yeah,
he's been very patient. He likes McDaniel's, sort of evil genius offense type of thing. The problem is the McDaniel culture is like this friendship, coach to player. We're good. We're buddies. We're boys. And in adversity, that doesn't resonate.
Yep.
And especially is starting to not resonate with fans who see this. And it's almost like he has a blind spot. Last year, they started off terribly, and they rallied with 6 straight wins. And McDaniel was preaching in the locker room afterward, we're answering adversity. And what they were actually doing was beating a bunch of teams that were under 500.
Yep.
And then they started playing teams that weren't under 500. And guess what? They lost to those teams. And in the last 2 years, they're 1-11 against teams with winning records. And so if you're that and you're losing late in the season, you gain the reputation as a soft kind of team and kind of a bully that beats up on inferior teams and then gets beaten up on when somebody, turns and faces you.
It's going to be an interesting season, always is, in the National Football League. And for the Browns, the top of the draft, and Miami's quarterback Cam Ward are going to make it all the more interesting. Armando, always a pleasure. Go enjoy the sunshine, and we appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, Nathan.
All right. Armando Salguero, senior writer for Outkick. He just joined us on the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. All right, when we come back, we're going to get some sound bites from Cam Ward at Miami's Pro Day as well. We'll kind of get to hour number 2. We're going to go through a ton of mocks. We're going to talk about those buckets again because I just got going on that. I want to hear what Gibbe thinks. I want to hear what G-Man thinks. If you guys want to tweet me while you guys are thinking about it again, I'll reset that at 2 o'clock. We'll go through kind of the options as they face the Cleveland Browns, really where we are right now and what that certainly means for the Cleveland Browns. 2:30, Nate Tice, staff writer for Yahoo Sports, will join us. All that and more coming up here on Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. If a car, truck, or motorcycle accident caused you injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk and Elk, proud partner of the Cleveland Browns. All right, let's get some sound bites from Cam Ward in Miami's Pro Day and the aftermath. First up, Cam Ward on what he wanted to show teams at his Pro Day.
I say not only showing them, but every other team just throwing on rhythm. Whether it's 3 steps on rhythm, 5 steps on rhythm for under in the gun, under center stuff that I didn't get to show as much during the season. Let them know that I'm capable of it. And then other than that, it's just making it all about my receivers, trying to throw them catchable balls, make sure not have balls hit the ground. We had a couple. But at the end of the day, you ain't going to be perfect. You always got stuff to get better at.
Miami head coach Mario Cristobal on why teams should take Cam Ward in the draft.
First, I'd ask if they've watched film at all this year, because if they have, I think it would make things a little bit easier. But I would be completely honest and transparent. He's one of one, and not only as a player, as a person. And again, to watch him on a daily basis attack the process of being an elite teammate and competitor. I mean, I'm talking about every single practice, every rep. There are no wasted downs or no wasted opportunities. He has just an uncommon ability to bring the best out of people. We can't wait to watch him play on Sundays.
Everybody you talk to about him, they say that he is absolutely a monster competitor, leader, all of that, and somebody that would be Louis Riddick raves about that aspect of Cam Ward. This is from Ian Rappaport on the Titans, and if they've made their decision at 1 yet, courtesy of NFL Network. And obviously we know with the leak to Adam Schefter today that doesn't feel like they've made that decision.
Despite the fact that they haven't signed a veteran quarterback yet, haven't made the firm and final decision that they are making the pick. They are still going through the evaluation process. I'm told the Titans are also going to have private workouts with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Those should be over the next 2 or so weeks. It is all part of the process, guys, for them to evaluate where they are. Do they want to consider potential offers to trade back, or do they want to make the pick? I would say, to me, it seems likely as of now make the pick, but certainly they are not done with that decision.
They're not done. I think that's pretty darn clear. They are not done because they said now, it's going to take an even a bigger offer now. Now we like them even more after a pro day, which is absurd, but nonetheless, that's what they said. And here is the consensus. We all know this, right? That Ian Rappaport is saying who the number 1 pick will be.
It does seem to me, based on the people I've spoken with, and this is obviously not a surprise, that he is looking increasingly likely that Cam Ward is the number 1 overall pick. It is not done. People are not done with their evaluations. We don't even know what team is going to pick number 1, but certainly seems the most likely scenario is that Cam Ward is number 1.
Yeah, Cam Ward is going to go number 1 in this draft. I think that is pretty clear. So if you're in the Cam Ward or only bucket that we talked about at the beginning of the show, we'll go through it. It doesn't seem likely that the Titans are going to sit there and take Abdul Carter and allow Cam Ward to come to 2. If the Browns are going to end up drafting Cam Ward, sounds like they're going to have to get to 1.
Yeah, and the ask is going to be a lot, to move up to number 1. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yep.
You got a chance to see him. You've gotten a chance to have him in your building and talk to him. And now we wait for the next steps here. What will the Tennessee delegation look like on Friday? And then the following Friday is Colorado's Pro Day.
Yeah.
So will that same delegation go to Colorado?
That'll be interesting to see. That's one of the things that you certainly want to keep an eye on. Speaking of the pro days, today in Louisville, Tyler Shuck is throwing the football around there. I'm sure he's going to have a very good workout. He's a guy who can sling it. 26, some injury history, though. People think that maybe he goes in the second round, third round. Some people said he's going to sneak into the first round. Who knows? We'll see on draft day. Tomorrow we'll have the Ohio State Buckeyes, Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Emeka Buka, and many, many more from that loaded squad there. We're just focusing on kind of the quarterbacks and skill talent there. Friday, we'll have Ole Miss's Pro Day, Jackson Dart, and then wide receiver Trey Harris, who I like a lot. Penn State will also be on Friday with Abdul Carter, and then Colorado on April the 4th, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. So Penn State and Ole Miss on the same day, that's interesting. And I think that, if you are the Titans, even if you were, let's say you're like, all right, we're not going to take Cam Ward, we're going to trade, we're going to go with Abdul Carter, and then maybe Jackson Dart would be somebody you look at there. So that's going to be an interesting split now. If they send a big contingent to look at Jackson Dart and not much of one to look at Abdul Carter, that tells me that they're definitely open to taking. They know what they got with Abdul Carter, but they want to see Jackson Dart because they might be going for a quarterback later on in that one, which is an interesting situation. So that's kind of the lineup of these pro days. Again,
it's almost been like a feast or famine, and now all of a sudden you're going to have like 7 pro days, and
well, good. We need some.
You're
going
to basically have the same reaction that you had to Cam Ward's. Oh,
yeah.
It was an amazing workout. Of course it was. No defense.
That
no
you
pads.
should. The pro days should only raise red flags. They should not make you. I mean, obviously, you want to see the person throw the ball up close, but this is not. They should look good in a pro day. It would have to be more, oh, man, they didn't look as good. That would be much more of an issue than they do look good, if that makes sense. They should look good at a pro day.
Yes,
they should look great.
They're supposed to.
You're supposed to. It's scripted. It's your guys. It's everything. So you should be good to go. You should be able to find that relatively easily there. So when we come back in hour number 2, we got a lot of mock draft roundups. I'm going to kind of reset what I was talking about earlier, that there are really kind of 4 picks that can be made really for the Browns at 2, 4 buckets, and there's really a 5th bucket, which would be to trade. We'll talk about that as it stands. But that's kind of where we're at right now for the Cleveland Browns in this draft, and it's going to come down to the evaluations of Andrew Berry and his team, most likely on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, that's going to guide us into whatever bucket we're going to end up in. So we'll go through that again. We'll go through some mock drafts with some results and let you guys know kind of where everything stands in terms of the perception right now around the National Football League. Hour number 2, Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Bally Bet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, coming up next on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome into hour number 2 of Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Bally Bet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Coming up at 2:30, Nate Tice, the staff writer from Yahoo Sports and former college backup to Russell Wilson at Wisconsin, released a profile on Shedeur Sanders, also released a profile on Cam Ward, and he is a big Cam Ward fan, so we will get his opinion there. Let's take a look at the mock draft roundup, though, but before we do that, add more fun to your fandom with the Bally Bet Sportsbook app. Download today and get $50 in bonus bets when you place your first wager of $10 or more. Bally Bet, an official sports betting partner of the Cleveland Browns. All right, where do reporters currently have the Browns going over with the number 2 overall pick lately? Here are some. We'll start, though, first with a clip from Get Up this morning with Mike Tannenbaum, Greeny, and Tim Hasselbeck.
I like Shedeur Sanders. I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback.
Got you down for right now.
Kirk Cousins, I think he has a really high floor. Maybe not the biggest ceiling in the world, but he's accurate. He led the nation in completion percentage, and he's extremely tough, Greeny. 94 sacks over the last 2 years. So I think he's a good player. I just don't see elite skills.
Tim, if the Giants is the Giants taking Shedeur Sanders at number 3 the right pick?
If he's as good as Kirk Cousins, it's the right pick. That might sound crazy because Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick. But Kirk Cousins, played winning football, stabilized the quarterback position, and the stops where he's been. So, look, if Washington would have done the right thing and given him the deal he deserved early on, they'd have been better for it. So, look, Mike T is saying, his comp is Kirk Cousins. Again, I'm not trying to, and I hate to say this, in some ways, because I think people are going to read it the wrong way. I actually think the comp is Andy Dalton. Now, Andy Dalton's another guy that's thrown over 250, touchdowns throughout his career. Andy Dalton stabilized things in Cincinnati. Andy Dalton took that organization to the playoffs 4 different times. And Mike said something I think is critical to kind of listen to. He's a good quarterback. I think that there's confidence that he will be a good quarterback. I actually think that he's very pro-ready with how he's been coached, with how smart he is, how he plays the position. And so I think that's just this tricky, area to be but we're picking at the top of the draft. And so do you want to draft a good quarterback at the top of the draft? Or are you hopeful to draft a great quarterback at the top of the draft? Look, I think you can make the argument that drafting a good one, a guy that'll be a starter for a decade, is still the right decision. Andy Dalton didn't win a Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins, didn't win a Super Bowl. There's the element of, well, what do you do? But drafting the guy, Trey Lance, Anthony Richardson, that's got this super high, potential, well, that gets guys fired. So, look, I don't think it's wrong to draft a good quarterback in the top half of the first round, but you can easily argue that it's not going to get you to the ultimate goal.
And I think that is the big question, right? And that goes back to how we opened the show and how I opened the show and said, here are the buckets. And Dr. J's already put out a video from that beginning, but I'll just reset it if you're just joining us. There are 5 ways that this thing could go for the Cleveland Browns. There's really kind of 4 camps is what I would say, because 2 of them are kind of the same camp. But the number 1 is Cam Ward or bust. And that we know now from the Titans statement, I don't see why they put that out if they're 100% taking Cam Ward. Now, Armando Salguero earlier from Outkick said they're doing that because they want to make sure when they make that final decision that they have all the best information. Now, that being said, that makes me feel like they haven't made the decision. So they are not 100% set on Cam Ward. So if you're the Browns and you want Cam Ward, there are 2 things. Tennessee takes Abdul Carter 1. I think we've heard now from everybody that the first pick in this draft is going to be Cam Ward, whether that's from the Tennessee Titans or whether that's from the Cleveland Browns or the New York Giants, or maybe there's some team we don't even know about. But that Cam Ward is going to be the first pick in this draft. So if you're a Browns team and it's Cam Ward or bust, the only way it sounds like you're going to get to draft Cam Ward is by trading with Tennessee and going to number 1 overall. That's it. What does that cost? We don't know. Now, if they're not sold on him, that means that they would rather take somebody else or at least equally take somebody else. Because you're 2, you have the advantage that they can still get that same guy picking at 2. They cannot necessarily get that guy picking at 3. If they had Cam Ward and Abdul Carter the same, they can't guarantee Abdul Carter at 3, we could take him in that scenario. So that's where your advantage there, which significantly reduces your price to get from 2 to 1. So that's one camp. If that's where you're at, you're making that call. You're trying to get that done, and I'm sure you're engaged right now in a game of chicken. Who's going to blink first? Who's going to say, okay, I'll take your offer, or okay, I'll up my offer to your asking price? Those discussions have to be happening. I think they are, because it's just, you've heard Andrew Berry say they're calling about everything, all the different options all the time. So getting the number 1 pick in a draft where if you believe it's a 1 quarterback draft, that conversation's happening. Now, if you believe it's a 2 quarterback draft, then this becomes so simple. So simple. If you believe, like Mike Tannenbaum, that Shedeur Sanders, or like Bucky Brooks, that Shedeur Sanders is a top quarterback, then it's easy. You stay at 2 and you take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, which means you probably are taking Shedeur Sanders based on everything that we've heard. If not, the next bucket would be to take a position player. And I think the 2 options are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Travis Hunter, who Andrew Berry views as a receiver, he is a weapon. Guy who can play some corner for you as well in big, high leverage situations. Helps you score. You're the worst scoring offense in the NFL. So you can get Travis Hunter, which I think is an appealing thing. To me, of the position players that were here, give me a weapon. Give me Travis Hunter. The other one is Abdul Carter. I like our defensive end room. I understand that Carter and Myles Garrett, if Abdul Carter, let's say he's Micah Parsons, to have Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett, sounds incredible. It does. Sounds great. Sounds suffocating. I still don't know how we're going to score. And both of those picks means your rookie gamble then could be Jackson Dart, could be a Tyler Shuck. I suppose it could be a Milroe, but I don't really see that in terms of his skill set currently and what we're trying to be on offense. I don't think we're doing a Baltimore change everything for Lamar Jackson. I think we're running Kevin Stefanski's offense. That's a big leap for Jalen Milroe. Could be a Kyle McCord. Could be a Will Howard. Now you're getting down into day 3 guys most likely, but that's where things change. So could that work out? Yes. Historically, is it more likely that you're going to have success on a quarterback because you draft them early? Yes, because they're worthy of being drafted early. Not if you don't believe that Shedeur is that guy, can be a top 16 quarterback, you don't take him early. So that gets you to this boat, the Hunter or Abdul Carter. Me personally, I'd rather have Cam Ward. I believe in Shedeur, so I'd be fine with Shedeur. Then give me Travis Hunter, and then for me, it's trade down. And that's not against Abdul Carter. I think Abdul Carter is a great player. I just think when I look at the Browns' biggest needs, number 1, it's quarterback, and number 2, it's overhaul the offense. We need to score, period. We cannot score. We're the worst scoring team in the league. And Abdul Carter, great player. We've had the number 1 defense. Didn't win a playoff game. We didn't win a playoff game. And it's hard to be dominant on defense year after year after year after year after year after year after year. And I think ideally, it's kind of like when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, that's good, but you're into Myles Garrett in that room for quite some time. Now, the idea, I'm guessing, would be you draft Abdul Carter, and then as Myles ages out, Abdul Carter is then the guy you signed to a big extension, so you have kind of continuity of a dominant edge rusher for a very, very long time. Which, I get that. If we were a team that had a quarterback or a decent offense, but we had somebody that we liked, even if we had a Bo Nix, if we were the Denver Broncos, we had Bo Nix, it's a no-brainer, Hunter or Carter. Right? It's a no-brainer. But that's not who we are, unfortunately. And so then the 4th and final bucket, if it's not Cam Ward, if it's not Shedeur, if it's not a position player, and I guess you could say Mason Graham could be in the discussion as well, but it really feels to me like it's Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, then it's to trade down and try to get assets for the inevitable push for a quarterback that's hopefully coming in 2026. And that means you're looking at Kenny Pickett. You're looking at, potentially Russell Wilson. You're looking at Carson Wentz. And then maybe one of these quarterbacks that you can get on day 2, day 3. Chuck, McCord, Howard. Dart, it sounds like it's going to go in the first round. So maybe are you trading back in? I don't know. But to me, those are kind of the scenarios of where you're at. And a lot of it hinges on, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure, right? So it's, okay, our first path is Cam Ward. Can we get Cam Ward? Yes. Then we draft Cam Ward, and this conversation's all moot. If not, you have to advance to option 2. Option 2 would be you believe, Andrew Berry, that Shedeur Sanders, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, you believe Shedeur Sanders can be a top 16 quarterback in the NFL. And if so, then boom, it's easy. You pick Shedeur Sanders, and that's it. Now you're done. Your adventure's done. If you can't get Cam Ward, and if you don't believe in Shedeur Sanders, now you go to option 3, which is Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Top 2 players on most people's boards, consensus boards. Those are the most talented guys in this draft. But doesn't help you with the quarterback situation at all. So that says, okay, I'm fine not addressing quarterback this year. We're just going to figure it out at some point and not utilize the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, which is a very valuable asset, to give us a shot out of this situation, which really is the only way out is to draft a rookie quarterback and have him be that good, top 16 on a rookie deal. We're not going to do that. We're just going to take a position player. That's tough. And if you say, well, that doesn't accomplish my goals of getting me where I need to be for a quarterback, then it leads you to the fourth and final option, which is to trade down. Now, trading down requires what? It requires interest, right? Somebody's got to want to come up to number 2 for Abdul Carter, for Travis Hunter, for Shedeur Sanders. And it's got to come with a package that provides assets that allow you, because guess what? We've got a lot of holes. We need assets, but that provides you assets with an opportunity to say, okay, in 26 or 27, we're now positioned to go after a quarterback because we have the assets. Keeping in mind that if there's a quarterback that you want and the team that has that pick that is slated to take them and they don't want to give them up, you can't get them anyway. So that's kind of where you're at. And really, if you go through to me, door 2 or door 3, you're saying my short-term swing at the quarterback position, or door 3 or door 4, I'm sorry, which would be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, or you trade down. You're saying my short-term solution is either going to be Kenny Pickett. My bite at the apple for a long-term solution is going to be Kenny Pickett, or it is going to be, a Dart or a Shuck. And that's probably where you're going to be at. So the question is, can you get Cam Ward, number 1? If not, then you go here. Is Shedeur the guy? If you don't believe so, now you're on to 3 or 4. Are we staying there using this asset to get the best player we think possible, or are we going to try to use this asset to accumulate other assets, adding talent, but also giving us an opportunity to still get after a quarterback? And that's really kind of where it all shakes out. That's it. And now we're going to go through some of these mocks.
I was going to say we can do that after the break because I have a question for you as well.
All right. Gibby's got a question. We got mocks. We'll tell you where everybody's got. And then the confounding commentary that surrounds all of these picks. We'll get that for you when we come back. Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Ballybet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. OBM is the preferred provider of copiers and document services for the Cleveland Browns, who can tackle any size office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. What do you got for me, Gibby?
Two things.
Two things. Now we've doubled.
One.
Yes.
What do you make of what J.J. McCarthy said this morning on Up and Adams?
What did J.J. McCarthy say this morning?
J.J. McCarthy was asked by Kay Adams about starting this year for the Vikings.
Yep.
His response, quote, "They haven't told me, and I'm happy they didn't, because I try to earn it every single day. I never want that to be given to me. It's such a privilege and an opportunity to give me that chance. I'm just going to make the most of it every single day."
I don't read much into that. He is the starter. That's why Sam Darnold's not there. He's the starter, and that's why they're not interested in Aaron Rodgers.
Secondly, airing of the grievances. Okay? This whole it's not a whole big thing, but there is a group that are every year, hey, next year's quarterback class is going to be better.
I know.
Next year's quarterback class is going to be great. Have any of these lived up to that expectation except the 20 class? And even then, we didn't know a whole lot because it was COVID.
No, and it's changed so much, right? Like Baker a year before was never going to be the number one pick. Kyler Murray the year before that was not going to be the number one pick.
Yeah.
It's those things are so hard to predict. I mean, everybody's saying Arch, man, we haven't really seen him play.
What if Arch says, I'm going back to school?
I don't think he is coming out next year. I think he'll be in 2027.
That's what I mean.
So now you're talking about Drew Aller. You're talking about Nussmeier, right? Is that the guy who's in LSU? Carson Beck. Like Carson Beck was supposed to be the top quarterback in this class, and now he's going to be at Miami. So Carson Beck.
That's what I mean.
It's a whole lot of unknown.
You cannot look ahead.
It's hard.
You
right,
have
people
to
could get
live
injured
in the here and now.
Right. And so that's why, again, I think that if you have the ability and you are ready to, if you have the conviction, then it's easy. It's path one or path two. If you don't have the conviction in path two, you've got to find a way to make path one work for you because it's the most important position in sports. And it sounds like the Titans, based on their statement to Adam Schefter today, are open for business. So those are the two things that you need to do. I think you're spot on there. I do think that, again, when I go through the next part, because you have people who are just all in on Abdul Carter, you go through some of the analytics and stuff like this, and I'll quote the great Cleve TA right here, and I'll retweet it for people as well. And this is what is hard for me to get my head around with, call it, if we're picking Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, why I prefer Travis Hunter, because I think he can help us in offense. So the Browns last year were number 1 in pressure rate. They are number 5 in pressure rate without blitzing, number 9 in quick pressure rate overall. Last year, with Myles Garrett and the people you had here last year, Malik Collins should be a pass rushing upgrade over Dalvin Tomlinson. He's had back-to-back 5-sack seasons. Dalvin Tomlinson never had more than 3.5 in a season. Mike Hall is healthy. McGuire played well. Wright played well. You bring in Tryon Shoyinka, who's got first-round pedigree. So I don't understand. Like, that's not the problem with this football team.
Correct. We have a lot of holes.
And the biggest hole is offense. 32nd in scoring, 32nd in EPA. We got more than acceptable edge play opposite Myles Garrett. Is it as good as having 2 Myles Garretts out there? Probably not. But one other thing that you have to understand when you're the Browns, because you have Myles Garrett, from a scheme standpoint, teams get the ball out much faster against us than they do against anybody else. That's going to happen. And if you only have so much time to get there, you only have so much time to get there.
And the biggest thing is we look at these mocks, and G-Man did a great job putting all these together. There's 7 mocks, and 3 of them have Abdul Carter. And then the immediate pick after Abdul Carter at number 3 is Shedeur Sanders. And they're like, it's a great quarterback. It's a guy that can change your franchise. Why is that not okay for my franchise?
That's the part about that's very frustrating. And again, it comes down to the reality of the situation that I said is, look, it makes no sense in the mock standpoint. But if the Browns believe what these people seem to believe, that he's the answer for the Giants, and thus the Browns would believe that he was the answer for them in Shedeur Sanders, they're going to take him, and it doesn't matter. But you've got Chris DePrasso, Travis Hunter, Nate Tice, who we're going to talk to, Charles McDonald, Yahoo, Travis Hunter, Chad Reuter, NFL.com, Abdul Carter, Daniel Jeremiah, Abdul Carter, Pete Prisco, Abdul Carter, Mike Tannenbaum, who loves Shedeur, has us taking Travis Hunter, and then says the next, Shedeur Sanders is great. Bucky Brooks has the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders, and he is the top quarterback for Bucky Brooks in this draft. Trapasso says this: even without a long-term quarterback solution on the roster, the Browns would take Travis Hunter. Tyson McDonald, the Browns can certainly use a young quarterback to groom. Tice, I think, is of the belief that Travis Hunter isn't there. I don't know, or that Shedeur is not there. I don't know where he has Shedeur going in his mock. Reuter, trading for Kenny Pickett means the Browns could focus on taking the best player available before picking up another quarterback. It does?
No, it doesn't.
I want Kenny Pickett to be a success too. 15-10, I've talked about it. 7-game winning drives. I think that's all great, but that is not, this is the way we go. But what I talked about is one of the outcomes if you don't take one of these guys early. That is kind of, in some way, the way you're going. Jeremiah, the Browns could be taking Carter second and a quarterback in round 2 versus picking Shedeur Sanders at 2 and taking an edge. Now, it's considered a deep edge class, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get the guy you want at 33. If that's your plan, is to get a quarterback down there really is no guarantee. Prisco, they will consider quarterback here, but I think they pass and take an elite edge rusher. Tannenbaum, Cleveland needs a quarterback, so I consider Colorado Shedeur Sanders here. I think if Abdul Carter, I just think for us, it is so fun to think about that, but I think about Highsmith and TJ Watt dominating, and they did. 2 years ago, I think they both had double-digit sacks and were dominant there, and if you kind of add in, Herbig along with if you had Herbig in along with Highsmith last year, because they were all hurt, you still had kind of 2 double-digit sack people off of the edge. So guess what? They lost their last 5 games with Russell Wilson at quarterback and lost in the playoffs and were not able to get it done. Why? They could not score the ball enough.
We couldn't score the ball last year. How many times did we say, we could just get to 20 points?
Yes, I would love to score. So last year for them, TJ Watt had 11.5 sacks. Cam Hayward had 8. Highsmith and Herbig at 11.5 combined opposite him. So look at that. Boom. You go back to the year before, and I think it was even more dominant, and then we'll take a break. You go back to the previous season in 23 when Watt led the league with 19. Highsmith and Golden opposite him, and Herbig opposite had 14. I mean, that's 33 sacks off the edge group. Like, did they win a playoff game? No. You got to be able to score the football, and that was with Kenny Pickett. But you got to be able to score. All right, when we come back, Nate Tice, he has the Browns taking Travis Hunter. We will talk to him about that pick. We'll talk as well about Shedeur Sanders, about Cam Ward. He is in the path 1. He's in the path 1 camp, that it's Cam Ward. So we'll talk with him about kind of just the Browns' philosophy, his thought process on that, and much more when we return here on Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet. Welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily. We head back out onto the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. And we are joined by Nate Tice, staff writer for Yahoo Sports. Nate, it is good to have you on the program. This has been a wild and kind of almost, in some ways, dull offseason. I'm ready for this draft to get here so we know what the heck is going to happen. How's this kind of whole offseason draft process felt to you?
The usual, a lot of noise, followed by more noise, followed by silence, followed by manufactured noise, and then we're at the draft. So it's just kind of how the draft usually just goes. There's just a lot of different narratives out there, people trying to create content that comes naturally. So it's just kind of the usual draft process. I feel like I've kept my head above water at least. Well, getting through free agency now, middle of draft.
That is good. We appreciate that. I know that you from reading and you put out kind of these profiles on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and you are I laid out for the Browns at pick 2 earlier on the program, kind of that there are 4 buckets if you're the Browns. Bucket 1 is you believe that it's Cam Ward and Cam Ward only in this draft at the quarterback position, and you are probably only going to get him if Tennessee is willing to make a deal. It sounds like the comments released through Adam Schefter indicate that they're at least open to exploring that. So that's bucket 1. Bucket 2 would be you actually are a believer in Shedeur Sanders. I know that you are not as much of a believer in Shedeur Sanders at pick number 2, but if the Browns, let's say, were, like some other analysts out there, you can take him at 2. If you are not a believer in Shedeur, you can't get Cam Ward. That puts you in 2 spots. Either take a position player, which would be Travis Hunter, who you have for the Browns, who helps at least the offense, which is last in the NFL, or Abdul Carter, or you trade down and try to load up for going after a quarterback either later in this draft or in 2026 or beyond. How do you see this draft? And it sounds to me like you would be, if you were the Browns, you were Andrew Berry, you're in the we've got to find a way to get to number 1 for Cam Ward.
Yeah, that's kind of where, if you have to come out of this draft with a quarterback, if that's the mandate that you've dictated to yourself, which it might be in Cleveland, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to coax the number 1 pick away from Tennessee and convince them that, oh, no, we want Cam Ward, you don't. And because I do think this is a 1 quarterback draft. Okay. Not saying that none of the other guys outside of Cam Ward do not have a shot to become a starter or a quality starter or anything like that. Just as prospects, I like to look at it as a starter, bench, or bust kind of like hierarchy, not hierarchy, but a pie chart, I guess, a likelihood. And I just think the one that has the most likelihood of that is Cam Ward, and the rest are more guys that I'd look at bench with some chance of starting. So if you're the Browns, I really don't, I've never been a person, and I think this is just anyone that looks at team building, you don't want to be desperate to take a quarterback either in the draft or free agency, and then you're attached to that quarterback, hell or high water, and then that's that. And if it's hell, then you're out of a job, and the person that follows them probably won't want that quarterback, and then it's just you created a new mess for the new regime. So no matter what, you're getting the worst of both worlds. So that's why I think when you have a 1 quarterback draft class like this, that means you don't do anything desperate early, which when not doing anything desperate to me is trading back or taking BPA, best player available. Which to me would be, Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are the best players to me in the draft, the top 2 guys. I usually defer to the trenches, so that'd be Carter. And then maybe throw it. I think the rest of this quarterback class, even guys I do like, I'm more bullish on a guy like Riley Leonard. I'm including Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck. Any of these guys that you think might have a shot, I would wait until day 2 to take that shot. Because as soon as you put round 1 next to a quarterback, you're anointing them, and that means you have to give them reps. And if you're not in a place that can have patience, either through this season or future seasons, then that's not really the situation that's going to benefit a lot of people, especially if you're squinting to see the type of talent there. So, yes, I think it's a Cam Ward-only type of draft in round 1, but it only takes 1 team, as many people say, and people do desperate things for quarterbacks, especially there's so much need out there.
What if in a scenario, and that's, I think these are a very possible outcome that's how the Cleveland Browns feel about Shedeur Sanders as well. I do think it's also possible that he reminds Kevin Stefanski of quarterbacks who have had a lot of success in his offense, and they think they can clean up, as you talked about, some of the drifting and things like that. But if he's operating in structure with, in rhythm, he can be deadly accurate and pick somebody apart. And some of the other analysts think that is, that's the most important thing, is processing, his accuracy, all of those things. What would be this? Does scheme matter to you in an evaluation like that? Or for you, is it much more who's the best ball of clay? And I think there is pretty much unanimous consensus that the best ball of clay is certainly Cam Ward.
Yeah, there's tools have to be, there has to be a baseline for tools, meaning, speed, arm strength, arm talent.
Yep.
And I think there is some, I think a lot of people will use, Tom Brady wasn't the fastest guy. Tom Brady was 6'5", 230 pounds and had a very good arm. So, there's thresholds for these things.
Sure.
That you have to have a certain size, a certain strength, a certain athleticism, and a certain arm strength to get there. And that's the ball of clay. And I think you don't have to be an all-world talent. C.J. Stroud is actually plenty fast. He doesn't run a lot, but he has, good tools as far as arm strength, even if his size isn't overwhelming. So you do have to have a baseline there, I think, in all of those thresholds, especially to play modern quarterback. Having said that, I think there's still stuff from college schemes that you can translate no matter what the college scheme is. Even I've been kind of curious what some of the discussion has been about Colorado's offense, which is, this is an offense that didn't do him favors. That's kind of a, you have an offensive coordinator that's had NFL experience as a head coach and offensive coordinator.
And knows our head coach well.
Successful. Correct. And has run successful offenses in the past. And a lot of those schemes, to me, the concepts that they ran in Colorado were day one, day two concepts that you see universal, especially not from maybe a true Shanahan offense, but West Coast NFL type schemes. Y cross, which everybody runs. They run a lot of half field read concepts, which is like a high-low dig and underneath route, and then a seam turn, which is a stop around the other side. But that is a read for the quarterback that if it's too high, you go one way. If it's one high, you go the other way. And that's like kind of an introductory NFL concept or a passing game concept, even in college, I would say, too. And that's why I think there's some discussions, he has to overcome that scheme. It's like, well, this is normal scheme. This is just a very typical scheme that you see. It's kind of a vanilla NFL scheme that Colorado ran, at least some of the passing game concepts. They ran a lot of screens, et cetera, et cetera. But that's where if you're taking a quarterback in the top 10 or taking a quarterback at number 2, especially, all right, you have to have a threshold of tools. I don't think Shedeur Sanders has great tools. I think he is adequate size, average size. I think he's an average at best athlete. I think he can be an efficient scrambler, but he does not win that way. Sure. And I think that's why he takes some sacks, and that's why the drifting is a tough thing that I think to overcome. But so to me is, okay, he can develop into this processor from the pocket. This is where, even in my article at the end, I was kind of like, I have trouble gauging that or taking that in the top 10 when you say he needs time and doesn't have good tools. Usually the guys that need time have tools to help them have at least some floor. Yep. And so that's where I get scared where you take a guy early. So that's where I came to, and even the quarterbacks I compared him to, a Kirk Cousins, which you mentioned had success in this type of offense. I mentioned even a Teddy Bridgewater as a comparison for Shedeur Sanders. Those guys, Kirk Cousins was taken in round 4.
Yep.
Teddy Bridgewater was the last pick in round 1 that they traded up for. Again, those are different. Your gauge, the expectations change when you're taking in those rounds, not number 2 overall. So that's, again, I feel like I'm always cold water when I talk about this. No. But this is just kind of where my mind goes as far as kind of risk reward of what you're trying to get at the quarterback position, which is everything. We all know this. You take chances at this position. Browns fans know. But it's just you take chances because if you get a guy, everything else becomes better. Yep. But it's just that this profile is a lot riskier to me than I think people are expecting it to be.
It's interesting. It feels like there's a wide range. Now, nobody says that he's, garbage. I'd rather take him at the beginning of the second round than number 2. And then there's some people that think he's, the best quarterback in this class, and others. He is very polarized, and I think for a lot of reasons, obviously. But I think even his tape and his skill set and how that translates is more polarizing to the NFL. So let's just say, walking through kind of with our head, that you have, Cam Ward goes 1. The Browns are not able to pull off a trade to get to 1. They have the same opinion of Sanders that you do. So now you're in a position where there are 2 choices. Take the best player available or trade down and hope that somebody either wants one of the best players available or that they have a differing opinion of Shedeur Sanders than you do to acquire some assets to maybe make a run for a quarterback either later on in that first round or in the future, which is we know is always dicey. So let's stay with the best player available. I think it sounds like it's Carter or it's Hunter. Do you factor in when you give the Browns Travis Hunter that this is the worst offense in the league and that this is a team that needs maybe a playmaker more than it needs another defensive end?
I just always, when I'm going ranking you positions, like your positional value is really, it can get convoluted because it's all so team based too. And but truly, best player available to me, I think it's so hard for me because I think Travis Hunter has special, like absolutely special qualities at cornerback, and the offensive side, I think he could be a contributor. But I think he has this, again, when we're talking about athletic ability, he's special. One of the greatest athletes I've ever watched on film. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's just that he's 188 pounds. And I have big things about weight because I think it's just it's what teams look at too. And I think it often gets ignored by us in the media or us, maybe outside of teams. But, there's more likelihood that Travis Hunter at 108, let's call him 190 pounds, would have more success historically on the defensive side of the ball than offense. He'd be looked at more of a contributor on offense than defense. I even looked at the stats beforehand, but I believe there's only 2 All-Pros since 1990 that were 190 pounds or less. They're taking the top 2 rounds, while there was 8 on defense. 23 Pro Bowlers were a sub 190 pounds to make the Pro Bowlers since 1990. Only 5 receivers were sub 190 pounds that made the Pro Bowl since 1990. Zay Flowers, Deshaun Jackson, Chad Johnson, Marvin Harrison Sr., and Isaac Bruce. So it's not that I think that's why I think it's more he's a defensive player first that you sprinkle in on offense. And also just not even talking about the mental side of it, because that is just a lot of workload for any person. And so that's why I think it's easier defense, sprinkle in offense, as opposed to the other way around. But all right, that was a long discussion about Travis Hunter. I still think that Dual Carter should be the pick for the Browns because I always prefer defenders, defensive linemen first, trenches first. The most valuable position is the position that can get after the quarterback first. That's how plays unfold. Quarterback gets the ball. Who can stop the quarterback first? The guy that can sack him. And you guys, the Browns, already have Myles Garrett, who's all-world, future Hall of Famer, Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year. Why not create the most scariest defensive line in the league, and then figure out I think that is and something you can bank on week in, week out, that can impact plays, that can be true number changing and help whoever. I think back play is so volatile that it's harder you can make the bet with Travis Hunter. I think he is that special, but I think a very good Abdul Carter, who might not be an elite prospect to me, I think more of a very good prospect. I don't know. I'm the fan fiction in my brain. I just love the pairing of Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter. Maybe because I've seen the glimpses of it with Zadarius Smith and Okoronkwo. And seeing just little glimpses of that, and then now you get maybe a guy that's a couple tiers better, or maybe what the high end of Zadarius Smith was. I think that could create a special defense that you can bank on for 5 years at the very least, until Myles Garrett starts kind of tapering down.
Do you have any concerns about his size as being like a 4-3 end?
This is why I don't determine a elite prospect is I do think him against the run he's average at best. Against the run, I wouldn't say it's total indifference. I think it's more he can get overwhelmed by stronger tackles, and I think and bigger tackles, and you hope that he can spill out a little bit. And also sometimes he goes rogue. He's bendy, he's twitchy, he's athletic, and he wants to make plays. And that's one that can get coached out of him, though. Some of the best athletes, the best players have that issue. Myles Garrett's one of them. But guess what? It never really shows up with Myles Garrett because he makes the play, when he does do it. So I think if they didn't have Myles Garrett, it'd be more of an issue if he had to be the true ace. Hey, you're out there every snap, and you got to hold up against the run, and you got to rush the passer every snap. And being more of a secondary role, but being an ace in that secondary role, that's why it's not as concerning for me with the Browns. Maybe with other defenses, it would be, but they got the size to kind of help that out.
All right, Nate, good stuff here, and this is it's good because we've been talking. Look, I've been with this organization for there'll be 13 years. I want a quarterback so badly. We need a quarterback. It's going to come down to whether or not they feel like they can get one, whether it's Cam Ward, if they agree it's a one quarterback draft, or if they like Shador. But We need to be able to score the ball. I mean, this offense is so dreadful. It's hard for me, even though I understand probably the sense that you made there. It's hard for me to get my head around using this high of an asset on a defense that's not the problem and an offense that is massively the problem.
I get it, but when you kind of try to fill those holes with desperation, that's when kind of mistakes happen. And sometimes that's why it's like, hey, I know there's might be better options, but sometimes the safe bets are the safe bets for a reason, and then you just try to build off the safe bets.
Who's your favorite offensive player in this draft? Who's your favorite offensive player in this draft, if you consider Hunter to be more of a defender than an offensive player? Andrew Barry at the Combine for the Browns said that he sees him as a receiver, but if it weren't Hunter, who's the best offensive player?
Man, I right now I have Ted McMillan actually as the highest offensive player on my board.
Okay, Arizona, love him.
From Arizona, I'm the high guy on him. I think he has potential to be special.
Is he like a Mike Evans to you?
Type receiver. Yeah, there's some AJ Green.
AJ, okay.
And maybe AJ Green had maybe a little more long speed, but I think it's more comparable than you would think. I think Mike Evans is bigger. I think there's kind of that T. Higgins, AJ Green mold, but all the same archetype of player. Oh man, I really like McMillan. I think he is athleticism. I think people are focused on the long speed as opposed to how fluid he is.
Yep.
At being 6'4", 220, like the ability to sink in and out of routes. Like he can run the full route tree already, and he catches freaking everything. So that's also a thing. He's a big player that plays big, but he's not as stiff. And so that's why I'm all in on him.
My uncle was a professor at the U of A, so I'm very familiar.
Okay. I think he's special. I've been kind of like looking. I feel like I'm the John Travolta meme from Pulp Fiction, where he's kind of looking around in the living room. Like hey, I had the same feeling about Drake May last year, quarterback wise, but like with McMillan, I'm kind of looking around, going like, am I
the only one?
Am I missing something?
Yeah.
Like, I've been looking through articles, and everyone's like, oh yeah, he was highly recruited, but not a bad guy. I'm like, what am I missing here? And then other than that, offensively, I have the two offensive I consider Will Campbell an offensive tackle from LSU, but he probably will end up as a guard.
Yes.
Just knowing how the NFL works. And then Armando Salguero from Mizzou, who I do think could stay out of the tackle. But those would be kind of my top three offense players. But there's a lot of defense in this draft.
Nate, thank you so much. This was good stuff and certainly a good perspective as well. So appreciate the time.
No, thank you for having me.
All right, that was Nate Tice, staff writer for Yahoo Sports, joins the show on the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. So he goes to bucket number 3. We talked about the 4 buckets. That's where it's going to be. Let's get to this draft, and then we have so much more to come here. Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Ballybet. All right, everybody. Appreciate you with the last few days here. Great job, Gibbe, G-Man, and Dr. J, getting everything rolling. I will bid you adieu. I'll be back next Monday. We'll have the Dr. J Scout Report. We'll have much, much more. Hopefully there'll be some exciting news. Maybe Nick Chubb while I'm gone. I'll call in from Nashville for Nick Chubb. Maybe he'll be back for us. Anyway, the next level is next. Be good, everybody. You're listening to 850 ESPN Cleveland.